it you?
I don't remember.
I don't either. You want to do it?
Who do you want it to be?
I want it to be you.
I can do it. Okay.
I want it to be you, and I'll do it
Okay.
next time. Okay. Oh my God, here we go.
We can do that. Okay.
5 part.
Hi, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Erin Green.
And I am Michael Gray.
And Michael likes to make me crack up before I do my introduction, and then he sits in the background and laughs and thinks it's just a good old time.
That doesn't sound like me at all.
We had Valley Girl Michael coming out today. Oh my God. 5, 4.
Oh my God. Here we go. I'm gonna count down now, and then you're
Okay,
gonna
that's enough. That's enough. Okay.
Oh, it's coming back.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And
Good morning.
I feel like we don't thank our listeners enough. So
That's
I'm
probably
just
true.
going to say thank you, listeners.
Mhm.
This is our mini pod. Every so often we do 2 recordings in a month. For those of you who have been following us for a long time, you remember when we did a recording every week.
Every freaking week.
Super ambitious.
We really were.
And really, I mean, it was good stuff. Like, I feel like we had really good topics. We were, it started during the pandemic. So I think a lot of us had more time on our hands. And now we're down to the once a month. And every so often we do the second one every month. And it seems like the mini pods tend to be fairly popular too. People like the little follow-up, a little shorter episode. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate you. And just a reminder to share this with a friend if you find it helpful and interesting.
Absolutely. Yes, we do very much appreciate everyone who tunes in and listens and supports and shares and all that kind of stuff. We really do. And you're right. We don't say it enough. So thank you. All right. Leave us alone already. Jeez. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're talking metabolism this month.
Yes.
Metabolism.
We had metabolism. So if you listen to our initial recording, we talked about the different aspects of metabolism, what that actually means, what contributes to if we're in a state of, building up or breaking down certain nutrients and body stores and body tissues. So now let's just talk about a few of the misconceptions around metabolism, because I feel like the influencer space is still stirring the pot on this one.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to stop. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I should probably stop hoping for that, right?
I don't know. I feel like I kind of gave up hope on that a while ago. I feel like it's always going to be around, but if we can just like shift the percentage, then we did a great job.
Yeah.
There are just so many things that like have just hung around for so long that it's like, it's weird because I feel like people at some point earlier on in their life, like sort of adopt specific beliefs around nutrition, particularly, and they just stay there. Like
It's stuck.
It's like I'll talk to, a 50-year-old client and their whole approach is like stuff from 20 years ago,
I know.
And it's like, what are we doing?
Well,
like, first of all,
I
has
just
it
saw,
worked
I
at
know.
all?
I just saw one the other day that talks about how sugar causes diabetes. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Stop.
Yeah. I did a TikTok this morning just about this post that maybe you've seen it too on Facebook that I keep seeing. It says like 3 tablespoons of ketchup has more sugar than a glazed donut.
Oh, geez.
And it's like, okay. And
yeah, like what's your
what
and
I
actually would be really shocked if that were true, but anyway, yeah, I saw so one of my favorite influencers, I think his name is it Ben Carpenter? I might be. Hold on. He's British. Yeah, Ben Carpenter. BDC Carpenter on Instagram. He's one of my favorites, and he just did a really good review on like the ketchup scare, like the sugar and ketchup, and he he was like he drops F-bombs just like very randomly into his messaging to really drive it home. And he's like, if this concerns you, the amount of sugar in ketchup, then don't drink fucking bottles of ketchup. Like he just was like very pragmatic about it. And anyway, it's we got off on a tangent there, but just, I think it all boils down to when we hear these fearful messages around food, it comes back to like what it's doing to damage your body and mess up your metabolism. Like your body doesn't have a lot of checks and balances to keep things straight. I think that's what, we're all into this hacking your way to better fitness, better metabolic health. And it's like, actually, there's some like 95% of it is just this very simple, consistent, healthful practices that we drill home every time we sit down on Middleish is like, move your body daily, treat it well, nourish it with good food, enjoy your life. Find pleasure in things, find joy, find community, prioritize sleep. Like those are like the big things, people. So when you're worried about sugar and ketchup, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The worry that you're carrying and the stress around that is probably doing more harm than eating the 3 tablespoons of ketchup with the glazed donut amount of sugar. So
for real. Well, and even just outside of like what has more sugar or what's like more nutritious or, whatever, like it just, okay. Or we're getting off topic. I'll stop. I'm going way left field. So we'll stop. I will say this, that yes. And I think we mentioned this on the full episode, but just kind of piggybacking on what you said and not going a complete tangent, is that our metabolism really isn't something for us to worry about. Like our ability to manipulate it is pretty minimal and doesn't really work out in the ways we think it's going to. And it's like, if we just do like what Aaron was saying, like if we just take care of ourselves and we eat, in regular patterns and we, don't eat way past fullness and we're active and we get like, if we just take good care of ourselves, our metabolism is going to be fine. It's going to do what it needs to do because we don't really have as much direct control over it and we aren't able to manipulate it in the ways we think we can and we're told we can at all. So it's really something for us to not worry about. Like it's a thing that's a byproduct of all the other things we do. So let's just take care of those.
And a byproduct of genetics, your upbringing, your history, your environment. And so I think driving home that point, there are certain things you do have control over and focus on those things. But then there's things that, I might have control over more than somebody who has a different lifestyle, environment, background than I do. And so I think it's really important to keep that perspective too, because the influencer space sends the message that all it takes is your hard work and attention to detail and micromanaging the crap out of how you eat and how you move, when that doesn't really land with somebody who, maybe doesn't have access to those kinds of foods or, maybe was brought up in a different environment than what they would choose to live in as an adult. And so that set the stage as a child of what their adult body is, so anyway, I think the message that we always have control over how our metabolism responds to certain food and behaviors is a half-truth at best. So just keep that in mind as we go through this too. There are things you can do to, your metabolism will respond by increasing the amount of calories it burns or conserving energy. We talked about that in the first podcast. So there are things you can do to move the needle on that a little bit. But this idea that you have full control over how your body responds to food and behaviors and movement is we need to
or
get
even
that.
even that and I think we talked about this in the full episode too, but even that like we can manipulate it enough and then it's just a different thing, right? Like, well,
Right.
now my metabolism just is running hot like a furnace, where before it wasn't. And it's like, okay, well, even if it is, like an hour from now, it might not be. Like it fluctuates so
Exactly.
much that yeah, it's really chasing something that really doesn't do anything except leave you
Yeah.
frustrated and feeling defeated. It does that really well,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. It feels kind of crummy.
hmm
That's
yeah. And it reinforces this idea that we have that like, oh, I guess I'm just broken and my body doesn't work right
mhm.
and I don't all that bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
anyway.
hear that a lot too, that people say, I have a fast metabolism or I have a slow metabolism. I've even had clients come to me and say, I have bad genetics or I have a bad metabolism. And I'm kind of like, what do you mean by that? Because we know there are certain things that we do that force our metabolism to respond in kind. For
Mhm.
example, when you go move your body intentionally, your your body is going to break down more, energy stores. It's going to use the fuel that you've eaten, and that is a catabolic response. We
Mhm.
talked about that in the first episode. That means it's breaking down things and using them for energy and releasing
Yep.
heat.
Yep.
That is, I guess, what people mean when they say boosting your metabolism or increasing your metabolism. You're
Yeah.
you're firing up the furnace. But to say that, your metabolism is always running hot or your metabolism is always slow or
Right.
broken is just inaccurate, because there are little things we do throughout the day that your metabolic response is constantly adapting to.
Mhm.
And again, I'll say this again, you only have control over that to a certain extent. You don't
Mhm.
know. It's just like the whole idea of people saying like, "Oh, you can train your body to be a better fat burner." Yes,
Mhm.
to an extent.
Right.
But we don't know if it's going to be the same for me or the same for you or the same for your neighbor. So to think that you can like do all these micromanagey things
Mhm.
in your life and achieve this very specific metabolic rate or whatever is a fallacy.
Yep.
That's not to discourage you from doing things that are healthy
Right.
and good for your body and trying to
Right.
get there and experimenting with yourself. I mean, we
Mhm.
all, can kind of play around with what works well for us because we're all different.
Yeah.
I just want to get away from this idea that you have to micromanage the crap out of your entire day for the
Mhm.
sake of a quote healthy metabolism, and B, that you have full control over that process, because you
Right.
just don't.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it just kind of keeps us chasing stuff. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Like we can focus on behaviors or we can focus on outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
and we really want to control and like tightly grip exactly what outcomes look like. And they're different for all of us. Like when it comes to how our metabolism responds, when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to like I mean, even some people are going to be able to train and prepare for a half marathon easier than others. Some people are going to gain strength in the gym easier than others. Like it's just everything is individual. Everything's different for all of us. And if we just get caught up on the outcomes and where this puts me as opposed to the direction it's taking me, then I think we're going to find ourselves often frustrated. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just a lot better off spending our time and attention and energy on what are the behaviors that move me in the direction I want to head, and just focusing on those behaviors because they're worth doing just in and of themselves, regardless of how quickly they move us towards some certain outcome. Um, I think it's just another way that we wind up feeling just super defeated and frustrated and hopeless with all of this. And it's just completely unnecessary. it's,
Yeah.
it's not even a
Yeah.
thing that we should really spend much time worrying about at all.
Well, and then comes in the comparison of like all these, people that you see that have the revved up
Mm-hmm.
metabolism or they're running the furnace hot, and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
why can't I be shredded like them? Or I need
Mm-hmm.
to do the workouts they're doing in order to reap the same adaptations. Well, guess what? Like you both have a very different set of circumstances
Mm-hmm.
that are influencing not just the behaviors you can consciously engage in, but then how your body responds to certain environmental
Yep.
influences and lifestyle influences. And so I think that comparison, and again, we're, the diet industry, fitness industry is kind of selling that narrative that if you do these things, you will reap these benefits, when that's just, it's not a linear relationship for everyone. And so I think that comparison can be toxic. I also think, I hear a lot about kickstarting your metabolism. We hear a lot in the exercise space about certain workouts you should do. And, high intensity interval training was, the hot thing for a while. And now we hear all this stuff about like zone 2, lots of just zone 2, and high volume. Well, working out like 4 hours a day, or even just being active 4 hours a day, isn't always a reality for people. They're working multiple jobs. They have kids. They whatever, have medical conditions that prevent them from, moving that much or being engaged in that much activity. And so I think we just need to kind of drop some of the narrative that says like you're harming your metabolism by not doing this, or this is the golden ticket, and like focus on what actually will work for you. I 100% believe that moving your body intentionally every day is a good move.
Absolutely.
However, what's the intensity of that movement? What type of activity? Do you enjoy it? Is it something you can do with your family? Is it something that you can intersperse, and maybe you can do it like 15, 20-minute intervals throughout the day? Or do you have a 2-hour block that you can, engage in that activity? It can look different for everybody. And so when you see these videos, or you read a blog, or you hear somebody tell a story that like, yeah, I just had to do this massive volume of activity, or yeah, I just had to do this 30-minute, like super high intensity throw up session. Let's just like pump the brakes a little bit and figure out like, well, what would work well for you that would be, a step toward improving your overall health, mental and physical.
Yeah. Well, I remember talking about this idea quite a while ago. I have no idea what episode it was on, but it's this idea of like ideal, right? Like we can have, from like very controlled situations and in laboratories, we can have, science tell us what is quote unquote ideal in a very controlled situation, right? But what is ideal in those situations is that doesn't mean that we can all apply that to our lives in that way. And I think we just get so fixed on this stuff. Like, I don't care what ideal is. I mean, even with my clients, like, I don't care what ideal is. I care about what are we able to do that moves us in that direction. To me, that's ideal. Like, what are the changes that we can make, that we can do with pretty good consistency, not 100% ever. I'm never interested in that. Like, more, great, better, awesome. Like, this is what we want to do. So what can we do that helps us move forward in a way that we can do relatively consistently? And then how do we build on that? Like, to me, that's ideal. And so it can be a real hindrance sometimes to get caught up in these ideal sort of recommendations, because those just often aren't really applicable to an actual human being. And we really need to keep that in mind, that we are not in a laboratory with very controlled, parameters and settings. And we're probably never going to be. So what's better?
Yeah.
What's a little more? What's, like honestly, if you just focused on like, can I be active every day in some way, eat some fruits and vegetables, get some good sleep. I mean, just those 3 things alone done with consistency, huge.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I want to piggyback on that, because the consistency thing is really, that is the golden ticket, y'all. That is the thing that I run into this a lot. In fact, I had a client just yesterday talking about how perfectionism was getting in their way of being consistent, because it was like, oh, if I didn't nail it, whether it comes to like food prep or whatever their goal was, they were just like, all right, I'll try again next week. And so it was this yin and yang of like, okay, I either nail it or I'm not doing any of it.
All or none.
And we see that, we see that thinking all the time in exercise space as well. If it's not a quote workout, then it doesn't count. If I don't, break a sweat, then it doesn't count. So why even bother? The other part of this, I just want to highlight, as we were talking, I remembered an article I read last year about, we tend to have this idea that our metabolism slows as we age. Like I think over 40, it was like you burn, what it's like 10% less every decade or something like that. There's like some like metric. I don't remember what it was, but the old way of thinking was like, after age 40, your metabolism slows down like every 5 years or every decade by X amount. There's a new study that had 6,500 people in it from 29 countries. So it's actually a pretty large, scale study showing that like your metabolism doesn't slow down in a meaningful manner just because of age until you're after like age 60. So we still have this middle age area where people tend to kind of give up because they're like, oh, especially women in menopause, oh, my body doesn't feel the same. It doesn't look the same. It's behaving differently. I don't have as much energy. Oh, my metabolism is just breaking down or slowing down. So why bother? I'm never going to be able to do the activity.
Right.
Yeah. And so just, encouraging people to not get sucked into that way of thinking that just because we're aging, our metabolism slows and there's nothing you can do about it. Or just because I have less muscle mass, my metabolism is slowing. And so therefore I need to, really restrict what I'm eating. Well, guess what? If you restrict too much, you're going to have less muscle mass anyway. And so you're shooting yourself in the foot there. All this to say that consistency piece and really thinking about what can I do to take care of myself today and for tomorrow, like keep that in the forefront of your mind instead of focusing on all the things you don't have control over, like age. We're all aging right now. So,
right. Well, and I think it just really shows us how prevalent diet culture is, right? Like you're 65 years old, 70 years old, right? I just had this conversation with a client a couple weeks ago. She's almost 80 and she like hates her body because she has like a little bit of belly fat.
Yeah.
And her body, quote unquote, shouldn't be that way. And it's not doing what it's supposed to do because of that. And I'm like, you're almost 80. This is exactly what your body is supposed to be doing. And so we wind up like just trying to work against the way things are supposed to be. And we're trying to, we see that even like at 40, at 50, like our bodies change. We get older. Shit happens. Like this is part of the process. And we're literally like trying to rewind time and killing ourselves to have a body we had that we were 25 or whatever. And it's like we are so conditioned to like be so dissatisfied with our bodies that even when they're just simply, it's crazy to me. It's bananas to me that even as people are like literally like senior citizens, they're hating their bodies for having wrinkles and some extra body. It's like this is what they're supposed to do.
And let's not forget that we actually have evidence that says a higher BMI is associated with longevity in the elderly. So, sometimes elderly people become way too frail because they're trying to control their weight and restrict their eating. So let's just toss that out there as, and BMI, yes, we can have a whole nother argument. And I think we have several times on how BMI is flawed and it's not like the end all be all, but just saying that like there's evidence that says as we age, having a slightly higher body mass in general is a health protective measure. So
certainly a good idea. Well, you think about like how, I don't know. Maybe you said this. Did you say this? Did I miss? I might have been thinking about something to say when you said this. But like one of the drop-offs as we age is just how we move less. Did you say that?
I didn't. Go for it.
But we're just like, we're less active, right?
Yeah.
Like we just, we don't move as much. I know I don't move as much as my 7-year-old. I couldn't. Like I could not keep up with that kid. There's just no way.
She's going to put you in the coffin.
Yeah. And, and my parents couldn't keep up with me because that's just kind of what it is. And so like, as we move less, we're not going to retain as much muscle mass. We're just inherently, I mean, we can do things to mitigate that. We can intentionally move more and strength train and that kind of stuff. But also, like, we're just, that's part of what happens, like we got aches and pains and things are stiff and we have the surgery here and like we just don't move as much. And that's a huge part of our metabolic, basal metabolic rate is how much we move during the course of the day. And so as we move less, it's going to decline. And that's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, maybe that's a shout out to all the people who are listening that are in that, those golden years and thinking like, I could move more, or I would like to move more. Well, we did a podcast on that, talking about, exercising as we age and like taking care of your health as you age. So I don't know what episode that was, but you could go find it, listen to it. We've got tons of ideas on how you can move more. And again, I'll just reiterate that's a healthful behavior, like moving your body. It doesn't mean you have to be on some regimented exercise plan or do it in extreme ways.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
sorry.
Do it in ways that feel good.
Yeah. I mean, especially as like if you're like, in those sort of senior citizen years, like it can be things like gardening, like just activity. It doesn't have to be, I mean, I think strength training is great for, senior citizens. And I think most of them would really benefit from it, but just increasing your activity in some way, right? Yeah. Whether that's gardening or yard work or, walks around, your neighborhood, or I have clients who just walk around their house, right? Like they've felt stronger and more mobile and just really good benefits from just like doing laps around their kitchen and dining room. Like it doesn't have to be a significant thing. If it's more activity than you were engaging in, then you did it right. That's good. Just has to be a little bit more. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be crazy.
And these behaviors, I mean, we started this podcast talking about metabolism, but just to reiterate that these behaviors have a lot of benefits that have nothing to do with revving up your metabolism or burning more calories or any of those like buzzwords or phrases that we hear in diet culture. So just encouraging you to be healthy and take care of yourself no matter your age.
I mean, I think a lot of it is just not being an asshole to yourself. You know what I mean? Like just be nice to yourself about it. Yeah. Don't be a dick. Just be kind to yourself, like allow yourself to do things to move forward in a way that improves like just your overall health, but at the same time allow yourself to move forward in a way that allows you to continue to move forward, right? And that means like a lot of forgiveness and grace, and you're going to screw stuff up 100%. I guarantee you will. I promise you will, a bunch of times. And that's not really even screwing stuff up. It's just like how things go. And so we just get back at it. Like if we can just take really good care of ourselves, if we can just, eat nutrient dense foods, eat to, not way past fullness. If we can be active, we can get good sleep and just practice kindness to ourselves. Like your metabolism is not going to be a thing you need to worry about. It's just really not. It's going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
So,
and if it does become a thing to worry about, then you address that based on your needs. It's not something to like be trying to micromanage and be fearful of, that you have to do all of these things to try and improve it. So
100%. Yep.
So,
all right. Well,
okay. Well, that dead horse has been beaten. So let's we'll let you go for the day.
All right. Sounds good.
Do we do a meaning in the mundane for our mini pods? I don't remember.
Do you have
one?
Sure. Yeah, I can have one.
Go for it.
Okay. So just this weekend, the weather has finally turned a little bit cooler here. And we've had like yesterday, the low was 48. So definitely cooling off.
Yeah.
Highs have been like around 70. Humidity's dropped, and it's just been gorgeous. It's been like, what reasons can I come up with to be outside? Like, let's do all the yard work, and because for me, like once once that it turns a little bit and we're no longer like mid 90s with 80% humidity and we're like mid 70s, mornings are cooler. It makes my soul so happy to be out in this weather that's just really enjoyable, that you can be
Mm-hmm.
out in for an hour or two and not sticky and sweaty and miserable. And so we're just coming into that time of year where we just got a lot of great weather coming, and it makes me very, very happy
I
to
love it.
have that. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's definitely cooling off here. We are getting
I bet.
bogus got snow last
Yeah.
week,
Oh,
so
geez.
we are heading into that season.
Hmm.
Um, so mine is last night we had our end of season like celebration and awards for this mountain bike team that I've been volunteer coaching for this summer. And I've been seeing these kids, like the same group of kids, week
Hmm.
in and week out at the practices I go to and riding with them and hanging out with them. And at the end of season celebration last night, it just occurred to me like they were thanking the seniors and honoring the seniors. And I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, this is their last time on this team. Like I won't see
Wow.
them next
Yeah.
season. And so I think I just had this kind of in my brain, like, oh yeah, I get to do this next season. But these
Hmm.
kids graduate and move on and do other things. And so I just had this moment where I'm like observing, we're in this high school cafeteria with hundreds of these kids. And I'm just kind of looking around and like, man, this is such a precious time. And
Yeah.
gosh, thinking back to like junior high and high school,
Hmm.
there are times when you are just wishing it was over because it was so
Yep.
like emotionally chaotic and
Yep.
like you're so busy and school is heavy and whatever. I just was like, man, if I could just capture this little moment, and appreciate where these kids are and what they're learning and what they have ahead of them, and that
Hmm.
I get to play a very, very small part in that is just super cool. So I had a moment
Heck yeah.
last night
That's
for that.
awesome. Yay. Doing
Yeah.
good
And
work.
as someone who doesn't have kids, I'm sure you get many more of those moments than I do. But for me, it was like really profound. Like, whoa, I'm
Yeah.
part of these kids' lives in some
Yeah.
tiny, meaningful way, whether they even remember it 10 years from now or not.
They will.
I'm still in there.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yep. That's awesome. Yay. Doing
Yay.
meaningful things. That's
I
awesome.
know. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks for
thanks,
listening, all.
everybody. Yep. Again, we
Yeah.
appreciate y'all. Okay. We'll see ya.